Have you looked at the videos, the playlist on YouTube, the core EC-6?
I have seen them. I have some of them saved.
Okay, excellent. Because I was going to show you that. So with, let me see, EC-6 here, right? So different types of them, and what we're going to do science together. But if you'll come here to this side, you might not have been sent a link, but looking or here, met in the science 7 through 12, many of the like ideas connected with science are listed for you there, and they're sometimes helpful in the explanation. But let me go to what I'm all right. Okay, so we're gonna do science. So I tell all of my students when you're studying to do a deep dive of your standards, because it is your standards document, and oh no, that's not what I was trying to do, and your corresponding TEXES, the corresponding TEXES. And so you are going to access the TEXES here. So kindergarten would not be, excuse me, would be one of yours. So kindergarten through 6th grade. And we want to really understand this document for and what they're used for. So this document is your standards. This is what you must be able to do before you enter the classroom. If any of the other materials that you've seen look like, man, these questions are not what I see on the exam, or this is not what it's like, it is because they do such a great job of keeping the questions and the scenarios like very under tight seal, tight lip. And so we know two things, that they use the standards and the TEKS, which is why it's really important for you to understand what you should be able to do in the classroom, and what the students are responsible for learning, and what they need to be able to do before they leave your classroom. And so the standard document covers everything in the TEKS, and you'll see them directly mentioned in the overarching, like, this is what it's mostly, this standard is mostly about. So you'll see the first is mostly about safety, right? Lab procedures, field procedures, classroom procedures, you managing the different environments in which science can take place in an elementary. And so depending on where you are geographically, like maybe your elementary is near a creek, right? And so you get permission to collect specimens at that creek. Your classroom management rules, expectations, things that you say before, the conversations that you have before are very important to ensure student safety while they're out there. And so going through these, print this out when you study. Okay. And make sure with each of the standards that you're sort of able to say, oh yeah, standard 1 from science is all about safety in the different, environments, safety in the lab, safety during experiments, safety in the field, in the classroom, wherever the case may be, that we have the appropriate conversations and things in place in order to ensure that students are not only learning, but they're being safe while they're doing it. Standard 2 is mostly about what are you using? You using the appropriate things, like, are you using a beaker appropriately? Are you using all of the different tools, materials, equipment, and available technologies, right? We have lots of technologies that students can see, lots of different things, and sort of almost take virtual field trips to these other environments and see how much of their what they've learned about different, biospheres, different relationships between organisms. We can show them all those things using lots of different technology and scientific applications and platforms. National Geographic is fantastic. Lots of cool stuff for science teachers out there. So understanding when to use that and using them correctly. So one of the ways they might trick you as far as like utilizing technologies is you always want to utilize science technologies as an addition to a mini discussion, mini instruction, where you have given them direct instruction of vocabulary, and this technology is being used to differentiate that instruction to sort of illustrate concepts that are difficult to get off of just pen and paper or oral dictation. So knowing when to, instead of saying like, oh, letting them watch a movie over, I don't know, Free Willy or something like that. So it's intentional use of technology. Standard 3 is mostly about scientific inquiry. It's mostly about your questioning, really. And so what I want for you to do for like this one, I would write about the role of questioning in science instruction, because that's what all of Standard 3 is about. The types of questions and scientific inquiry that you indulge and create for your students. And so mostly about that. Next, Standard 4 is mostly about theoretical and practical knowledge about teaching and how students learn science. So like your understanding of what science says, research has said, this is the way students learn. This is the way students learning a second language learn best. And so we already know these things, and we know that students learn reading best in a particular order, in this order of introducing different skills, and in this particular way. So too is it true for science. And so utilizing that knowledge of how students learn best, like one of the things that I just mentioned right now about students learning best when they're given information in multiple ways, right? When you differentiate the instruction of even your vocabulary, right? Providing them with not just an image, but maybe a video or some sort of simulation that would illustrate for them something otherwise difficult, whether it's like an abstract concept, helping them and giving them multiple avenues for understanding. Another really important theoretical and sort of practical, like what teaching is having students discuss with each other themselves. Like we just read about how you need to utilize questioning. So coming up with poignant questions with which to ask your students after you've done maybe an activity or an experiment, just a couple poignant questions that you have them write about. That activity of having them reflect about their thinking, reflect about their learning, is practice in metacognition. Metacognition is thinking about our thinking. We're gauging our learning. And that's something that as we do it more often, it sort of becomes second nature. And that's how you become a lifelong learner, because you yourself know, I don't know enough. Let me go and find more knowledge. And so having the students write down an answer to your one, and let's just say one, let's say that you have students and one is enough, writing down their response. And then you say, okay, guys, now think, pair, share with your partner or with your your desk partner, scientific table partner, because they have those lab tables, your response. And now they have to turn to each other. And now they know, not only had to think about it, they had to write it down, and now they are orally expressing it to someone else. That does something in the brain and solidifies knowledge. And that activity itself, think, pair, share, where you have them speaking out content specific concepts and ideas, is really important if we want that knowledge that they learned during that lesson, during that day, to be sort of solidified as anything that they can be retrieved. Another reason we do that is because it allows for the students to practice oral language proficiency. It allows them to get practice talking about, well, the second specimen was more blurry because the water was polluted. And so whatever the case may be, they're having to speak out these things. It's excellent practice for students that are learning English as a second language. It's excellent practice for students that are native English speakers, getting comfortability speaking about content specific terms with regards, in the way that they should be spoken about. And lastly, that activity allows for them to negotiate their understanding and negotiate meaning, right? So I could be think pair sharing with you, and I say, well, this is why I thought the specimen couldn't be seen very well. And you would say, actually not, this is the reason. And so we would have a discussion and negotiate knowledge and negotiate meaning. And that's something that's also very important. After I would have students do that. And so this is just an example of things you could do and reasons why you would do them theoretically and practically within a science sort of instruction. And then afterwards, after they think, pair, shared, bring everybody back to whole class discussion. Okay, now let's have some volunteers on your response, or you can just choose people right out if you want to assess whether or not they understood. What you'll find after you've done all that is that you will have super extended the wait time for kids and you're going to have a lot more kids comfortable sharing out with you if they already practiced orally with someone else. And they're like, oh yeah, they're not ready. If they got a good answer, they're like jumping up and down to share it with you. Everybody likes to get it. Everybody likes to be knowledgeable. And so when we don't have kids excited to respond back, they're either disengaged or they don't understand, right? Those are the two options, and they're almost always right. So that is what Standard 5 is mostly about. Standard 4. Standard 5 is mostly about varied, and it doesn't say it here, but I'm going to say it, varied, consistent, and appropriate assessment and assessment practices, because the word assessment is sort of like misleading. I would rather we got off of the idea of assessments and started talking about assessments as data collection, because really we do collect so much more data than just the assessments that get noted in our with the state and or with the report card. So the assessments that really count are those day-to-day ones where we are gathering data and assessing their knowledge. And this can be you reading their written responses. This can be you listening to their group. If they're doing an experiment and listening to their group discussions, if you're hearing confusion in one or more of the groups, that is a formative assessment. It helps form your instruction. It helps form the lesson. And you could go back and say, okay, guys, there seems to be some confusion. Let's look back at the steps and review those really quickly. And that's you going back and reteaching something based on observations, based on your monitoring practices, which are assessments in themselves. So assessments aren't just tests. They are discussions, one-on-one discussions. They're your observations. They are exit tickets. They are their, any of their assignments. They are all assessments towards our understanding of where the students are, with regard to their TEKS. Next, you have a science teacher understands the history and nature of science, how we have progressed and how we continue to progress. We can never know all of it, right? There are still thousands, hundreds of thousands in many different areas of science right now working on scientific inquiry, right? With things we don't now know that we need to know. There will never be a time where it's like the end. And so it's always important to look back how we've sort of progressed via history. Our knowledge of DNA not only changed the medical profession, but it also super changed the judicial. Lots of people who were in jail for crimes that they didn't commit were released, and a lot of people who were before DNA was figured out and we could do DNA sequences, a lot of people who weren't already in the books for fingerprinting we're just like walking the streets. So in DNA, that science shifted not just the science community, but something, so this other area, and now, brought things up. So that's what that one is about. Oh, and the next one. So how does science influence the students' daily lives? And so it is always so important for us, whenever possible, whenever we're teaching concepts, facts, skills related to the content, that we try to make it resonate within their own lives, that there is that parallel or connection, and that we endeavor for the kids to continue to look for connections, how they use science, in their daily lives, how science influences their family decisions, their own personal decisions, and then even on a grander scale, like community decisions. And COVID is an excellent example of that, right? Of science really sort of influencing societal decisions. Like, I look all the time, and it's terrible, but I do like on Twitter, I follow where I live, Bexar County, because I live in San Antonio. I follow the COVID Twitter page or whatever it is, because they give updates and they tell you, like, there's a lot of infection in the community right now, testing positive, or there's a little bit. And so if my kids have a birthday party somewhere or something and it's super high, then I might not go, or they might go and they have to wear a mask. We went to a birthday party and it was at Main Event, but they had to wear masks. And when they came back to the table and before they ate, they had to do their hand, you know what I mean? It's COVID everywhere, and we just got over it. So that's how it affected my personal life. And not all the parents do it, but I don't care what the other parents do. Like my children are like, why do we have to do it? But this last time we got really sick, and it took me 14 days to test negative. So don't want to go there again. Yeah,
I know. Yeah, it's not nice.
It really isn't. And so here we go in the different sort of sections that correlate specifically with our TEKS. And here I'm in kindergarten. So you have, you have for 8, you must understand and know all of the science content that is appropriate in physical science. Now, physical science, life science, earth science, and space science and then all the unifying concepts, they're each going to have their own category in the science TEKS, which will continue to be built upon even after they move to 7th grade and 8th grade. So they're prepared when they take, their biology class, when they take their earth and space science class. So we get into the specifics. Now, the way to read it, I'm going to move down to one that has to do with TEKS, which is like, we'll do this one just to show you how you read it. Standard 8. And I'd like for you to do a close reading and annotate your text. This is also a strategy that we use for studying and for learning, annotating your text, writing examples, writing questions, real world examples, asking for clarification if need be, defining things if need be. So this is you knowing and understanding the content appropriate in order to teach physical science. They need you to understand the content appropriate for physical science. So on the left-hand column, you have physical science, sort of objectives, facts that you have to note. They're all denoted by a K, 8.1K, because it's standard 8, 8.1K. And it's what you need to know before you enter the classroom. And this is what you need to be able to do, your application of it, your application of your knowledge of physical science. So you should know properties of objects and materials and concepts of force and motion. But that's not enough. You need to know it so that you'll be able to analyze with your students position and motion of an object subject to change with an unbalanced force. tools to observe and record. And so typically the correct answer is going to be the science teacher doing something from that right-hand column, applying fundamentals, your knowledge of push and pull or friction, and then analyzing it with your students in reference to situations that or experiences that are normal for them, right? Or that they come into a lot of contact with. Toys, the playground. I mean, depending on what grade level you taught, you could even talk about roller coasters, right? Push, pull, force, motion, friction. So we're just gonna make this really quickly. I guess I can't because they're beside each other. So we're gonna look at the TEKS and take a look at some in specific. So we looked at kindergarten for science. As you go through these, I would make a note card or even like one sheet of paper, limit yourself so that you're concise with your notes. But you should go through these grades K through 6 and note the goal of for each grade level, for instance, and they tell them for you in kindergarten through 5th grade, it's organized into recurring strands, right? For those 5. Science and engineering practices, science inquiry is planned and deliberate investigation of the natural world. So they need to be able to do this using descriptive investigations, which have no hypothesis. Hold on, wait, where's the other ones? Students must ask questions, plan and conduct investigations to answer questions, and to explain phenomena. This is in kindergarten that they have to do this. For engineering practices, students identify problems and design solutions, appropriate tools, and we can take a look at some science, and you'll really probably get a kick out of this. I use Pinterest whenever possible to look up examples when students are studying for these. So if you're looking science, kinder experiments, you'll find so many that are really incredibly just super interesting. The baking soda one, and you can be more specific with yours. So if we wanted to look at an engineering, there's a really cool engineering kids or kinder. Kinder engineering one that they use. Oh, where is it at? See, something as simple as this, even like making the dominoes where they like get knocked down by the reaction there. But there's another one where they have to, and it was so cool. Where is it? Gumdrops here, this engineering one, and how many they would need in order to make it. So still with the same properties and principles, but as we move 1st grade, that engineering leg is going to get a little bit more intense, right? We're going to learn more concepts that help our understanding, and they'll remember the gumdrop stuff like from kindergarten. The one that I saw, I'm going to be really bad at it, but what it was like the kids, and I think it was an at-home engineering. I mean, let me do at home. It was a cooking pan, and it like a cookie sheet, and they had what was it? Play-Doh or clay, and they made different levels, and they were making stuff to make it to make the thing fall down, different levels where it would go to this one and then go to this one and then come and roll off this one and then go drop off the edge. And so they did it in groups and it was very, very cool. So whenever you're looking for illustrations or ideas as to how that might work in the different grade levels, utilize Pinterest. It's an excellent tool for things like that. So you'll see matter and properties, specific things that you have to do. They need to be able to observe. And so that's where they would go around and say, like, you know, this has a particular texture, or it's fuzzy, or it's yellow. Because even that, having them describe something, saying like, you know, they have to look at a picture or a pop-up book and then answer questions like what colors, what textures. That in kindergarten is a process of inquiry, right? They're observing and relaying empirical data, things that they've witnessed and felt via their experience. So doing that with them. Let me see. So what I would go through is make sure that you have an understanding of how they shift and sort of change by grade level within each of those categories, so those overarching categories that K through 5 are, you know, dictated by. And then we'll look at 6 to see how it differs, because kindergarten through 6, they are organized in these recurring strands. That means that 6th grade, which we have to go to middle school to access, is different. And so for this one, science is interdisciplinary in nature, many disciplines up in there. However, that being said, most of the focus is on physical science. So it's got lots in there, but mostly it's about physical science. National standards in science are organized as multi-grade blocks, such as 5th grade through 8, rather than individual levels, in order to follow grade level format used in TEXES. The various national standards are found among grades 6, 7th, and 8. Recurring themes are pervasive, so they get that recurring themes in math, science, and technology, because we're trying to show them how there's overlap, and science isn't just science and math isn't just math. We need so much of math in science in order for science to be science. We need so much of, you know, in each of these. And so that's where the change came. And actually, if we'll go back to, you'll see that, oh, I was looking at the wrong one. Sorry. Here. These are the updated ones. So before they changed those, and now we have 6 through 8 organized into recurring strands, and those specific strands follow through through high school. So it's very much going to be following. Here you'll see them. Recurring themes include structure, function, systems, models, patterns. Systems have basic properties, space, time, energy. And so those are recurring themes. Social ethics, important. Answering those questions on whether the ethicality of things. So you'll see as the students get older and mature, based on their, you know, what we know from human growth and human theory, is we can become more complex in our depth, right, of the content area. And that would include ethics discussions about some of the science. And as you would imagine, that gets a little bit more complex as they get older. In the high school and the DC and the AP classes, there's a lot of social ethics sort of and science ethics discussions there, where it's not just that one little piece, but we're introducing it to the students, and how there are rules and regulations over that, and some of our decisions as to what we look into and what we don't and how we look into it is dictated by that. So here you have scientific engineering practices. Again, scientific engineering practices. And if you'll remember, in kindergarten, that section was really small. It only had like one little thing in there. And now you have, it's bigger, and because we're covering more things. Matter and energy. Force and motion and energy. Again, force, motion, and energy, which of course is important because remember, 6th grade, its focus is on physical science. So there's going to be a lot of focus on the physical world, physical science, how science is measured and looked at in our physical world as we see it. Earth and space a little bit, and organisms and environments. So going through these and being sure that you understand the main concepts, like just taking a look here. Describe and predict how the positions of the Earth, Sun, and Moon cause daily spring and neap cycles of ocean tides due to gravitational forces. So I know daily spring about the moon and its force on that, but I don't know what neap cycles is. Not enough to teach somebody about it. That would be something I would look up, and that would be something that I would write down in my notes, because then once I do that, it's more solidified in my brain, and will have that as working knowledge for the exam. So that's how I'd like for you to study this science portion.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
And would it be the same for all the subjects?
Absolutely. It's exactly the
Okay.
same for all the subjects.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, it sure is. And so some of the other subjects I have on there, we've talked about, I did a fine arts one and a math one where we looked at some of the TEXES. We looked at a couple of the standards, like in a deep dive sense way. So, and what I'm doing is modeling how I want for you to study by yourself, right? It's just like what you do in a classroom, right? I can't teach you all of the science, but I can show you how it needs to be sort of digested. And the way that they'll use it sort of, I don't want to say against you, but the way that they will utilize this information and your standards is by giving you a Miss Monreal's 3rd grade science class is learning about engineering. Which of the following activities would be most appropriate for her students? So now I could put the gun drop one in there, right? Like gumdrop activity where students build a shape together or whatever, a tower. And another one utilizing, so the one that would be most appropriate to 3rd grade can be chosen by what you know of what 3rd graders need to do in that section. Like, what do they most need to know? It's not going to be that basic when we moved on by 3rd grade, right? We're past where basic engineering, and we're trying to get them to be a little bit more specific. Like maybe they have to have measurements with it, like build a structure that is, I don't know, 5 by 6 inches tall, utilizing these materials. You know what I mean? Because now it's not just build something with these things that I gave you and make it stand by itself so it doesn't fall over, try to work it so it doesn't, and then talk about why, as opposed to giving specific dimensions and detailed and specifications. So the way that they get you on some of those questions is going to be, how well do you know what they need to know and when they need to know it, right? That you're familiar and doing those kind of, those oversized, I wish I'm going to go buy some. Keep on talking about them and I haven't bought any yet, just so I can do and have like I like to have models and I don't have models, but one of those oversized cards for each of the the grade levels, or if you want to do it by each of the overarching categories. So you could do engineering and then do kindergarten, this, and these are some of the examples of assignments. First grade, they're doing this now also, because it's always going to include everything above, obviously, right? So everything that they learned before, plus these new things that they need to learn and be able to do before they leave you. And so there's two different ways. You can do it by grade, or you can do it by area of concentration and then write the different grade levels on that. So you might have an organisms and environment card, and what do kindergartners need to know about organisms and environments, and then and I think that's not something that they all need to know. So it won't be on all of them. But Earth and space certainly will be on all of them. But they will be learning at different levels, different things concerning Earth and space, and the depth and sort of like skill level with which we're going to be assessing them and utilizing that information, right? Because should start to be applied, the information that we're building with them, K through third grade. It really being applied via experiments and activities all throughout, but certainly fourth, fifth, and sixth.
Okay.
All right, Stephanie. You know my name is Stephanie too, right?
Yes, I saw it on the screen.
Best name ever. I always feel bad for everybody that had that name after I became a teacher and then after I had children, because when you're little and you don't know how to write, and everything that you have to write is on the top of your page every single time, no matter how, like, we had a lot of letters to learn from the get-go and learn how to write and put it at the top of the page. My kids got off easy. I have a Zoe, a Zuri, a Zara, a Noah. I'm like, man, I did you a disservice. You should have been something Evangelina or I don't know. All right. Well, it was a pleasure getting with you and studying with you. Continue, looking at it in this way, or ingesting and engaging with your content in this way, and go one at a time. How many do you need left?
Just science and fine arts.
Perfect. So there's a fine arts video, as you probably know. And so watch that one, do a deep dive with the fine arts, but do them one at a time. Don't do them together. Like focus on this one and then focus on the other one. And then you'll be ready next time, because you're going to know what to look for, and you will have reviewed everything conceivable that you don't already have like a solid handle on. Yes, I'll go ahead and do that, because I'm almost done with my science, and then I'm going to start with the fine arts. Excellent. And you just let me know if you have any questions or you need any help. I'm happy to help you. Yes, thank you so much. Absolutely. You have a beautiful rest of your evening. You too. Thank you. Okay, bye-bye. Bye.